Our boy Neil Greenberg joins the program from the Washington Post. Make sure you check out all his work at the Post, WashingtonPost.com. What's up, Greenberg? How are you, buddy?
I'm doing super. How are you guys?
We are doing well, man. We're doing well. I think we're getting pretty excited for next week. I think there's going to be I think we're going to see a lot of volume from Washington. It's kind of similar to how we saw last season. And maybe a couple of headliners in there too. But let's start with what they've already done. The Deebo Samuel trade. I don't know that I've heard your reaction to it. What do you think from a price compensation standpoint, and what does Deebo bring to this team?
I think it's great to be able to get him for a fifth rounder. They got a third rounder for Doxson when they traded him. So I think when you look at what they would have gotten in the draft for a fifth round, Deebo is certainly an upgrade of that. And I think that this is a really good complement to what the offense is trying to do. Jaden Daniels, obviously dual threat quarterback. Deebo Samuel is kind of an extension of that in that he can, catch a screen pass, make some yardage happen. The numbers last year were really good on screen passes. He caught passes about 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage and averaged about almost 7 yards a target. So that's big. And also he can run those routes towards the middle of the field too, which, there's a lot of talk about the tight end position for Washington. I think he could take some pressure off of that and work the middle of the field as well.
Definitely. I think a lot of folks are so convinced that Deebo's only going to be able to help at the line of scrimmage. And Washington's offense had a ton of just shallow crossers, like guys going send somebody deep and then kind of keep guys coming across the middle. I think Kingsbury will absolutely know how to utilize Deebo. I think this one makes a lot of sense. I really do. And I think it's an exciting piece to add. Where do you think Washington's greatest concern is here? And do you think it's something they'll be able to address next week?
Well, define address. I mean, they need help on the offensive line and they need help on the defensive line.
Totally.
They were, the metrics for pass blocking, run blocking were very poor. The pass rush was okay. The run defense was very poor. So they need to upgrade that in some way. I know a lot of people I've heard on the radio, fans clamoring that Deebo doesn't help either of those situations, but they haven't addressed those situations yet. Like that opportunity has not presented itself yet. The opportunity to get Deebo Samuel did, and they made the move, and I think it was smart. But I absolutely think that when you look at what the next step is, and if you have any hope of contending with Philadelphia, not just in the division, but in the conference, you absolutely have to get better in the trenches.
Mm-hmm. So what's most important, you think, the offensive side or the defensive side? Because I think offense last year, although they weren't great, they were more consistent. Defense wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, the offense showed what it can do with, it's not fair to say like a poor offensive line, but a poor performing offensive line from like the metric standpoint. They were historically efficient at times.
Yeah.
So if you can improve that a little bit and you can still maintain, that level of offensive efficiency, I think the offense can be very good. It's that defense that, like you said, I mean, you cannot have an inconsistent defense in the NFL and be competitive very long, because you're just, you can't give up 35 points, every week. Like it just,
right.
It won't work.
Yeah.
Because your offense isn't going to score 36 or more points every week. So you have to be able to make stops, and you have to be able to, stop the run, obviously, especially when you're looking at Philadelphia with Saquon Barkley and what they were able to do. And I really do think that that's the goal. I mean, the goal has to be competitive with Philly because they're not only the reigning champs, but they're also in your division, and that's the first hurdle. Like if you can't win the division, it becomes harder to make the playoffs. I'm not saying they can't make the playoffs, but it definitely becomes harder. It's you win the division, you have some advantages that come with that. Like I really do think that Washington needs to take aim at the top dog in the division. I'm sure the front office knows that. It comes down to are the pieces available in free agency in the draft to make that happen? And that, we're just going to have to wait and see.
Do you think it's more important, Neil? Like, I know they said they're going to be able to draft, and I understand that, but I don't think it means they're going to have all 100% of the people draft picks. But you look at the offensive lineman, is it more prudent to have a veteran player come in that you add, or bring some rookies in that may be top-notch guys?
I think you probably need a veteran presence on the offensive line, only because we've seen sophomore slumps. We don't know what Jaden Daniels is going to do in year two. Defenses will have a chance to digest what he did in year one. I think you need some experience up front to help mitigate a lack of experience behind them. And I'm not saying like Jaden Daniels didn't play better than normal rookies or anything like that, but I mean, he's still going into year two of the NFL. He hasn't experienced that yet. I think you probably want a little more veteran presence on the offensive line.
For sure. Talking with our friend Neil Greenberg.
I love like defensive young guys, like just young bull type kids who you just tell them, go make stuff happen, go do your thing. Like, I think that works a lot better on the defensive side than it does on the offensive side.
Talking with our friend Neil Greenberg from the Washington Post. You can give him a follow at _Greenberg. Neil joins us via the Rude Guest Hotline. Check out all his work at WashingtonPost.com. Are there any, when you look at Saquon getting paid, do you see a macro trend in the NFL going back to valuing running backs at an increased cost? Or do you think Saquon is one of one?
He's one of one. And, there's a lot of talk about the running game making a comeback in the NFL and just as efficient as passing, et cetera. That actually wasn't the case. What brought the running game up from its low levels was quarterback rushing. And the quarterbacks exceeding expectations in terms of what you'd expect based on the down distance and field position of each play. The running back production was relatively stable. It was an uptick in the rushing from quarterbacks. So I think that this is a one of one. I think some organizations might not make that connection and might think that they need, to spend lavishly on a rusher. But, Saquon also had, a really tremendous season and is being paid like one. But I don't think that we're going to see a resurgence. I think that they're going to be largely plug and play. Use young guys until they're past their running back prime, and then lather, rinse, repeat type stuff. But Saquon's special, and there was a couple of people, including myself, who thought he might be something special running behind a Philadelphia offensive line that was light years ahead of what the Giants ever had.
Yeah. I remember B said he would take Saquon first overall in fantasy, and we all laughed at him.
Mm-hmm.
And,
that's what I wrote.
Would have won you a lot of money,
that in print.
I remember both you guys talking about that. Yeah,
would have made somebody a lot of money.
Yep.
It's all right. I won my league
Don't take
anyway.
Christian McCaffrey. Take Saquon. Number one. Saquon.
Christian McCaffrey, he might have played a game.
I took Jamar Chase. It was all good, guys. Don't worry.
That worked out too.
I do want to talk a little caps with you, Greenberg, but I got one more. Brock Purdy, would you pay him?
Yes, you have to. Again, I said this before. It's not who is a free agent, it's when they're a free agent. And when is their contract due? And the quarterback position just isn't overflowing with enough talent where San Francisco can say, okay, we can spend the money on someone else and still, maintain our Super Bowl aspirations. I don't think they really have a choice to pay him. And again, I mean, it's just the timing of the market. I don't necessarily think it has anything to do as much with who's available, but there's just who's your plan B. Like, Stafford supposedly was marketing himself. There were no takers. Sam Darnold. I mean, there's going to be. I just don't think you have a choice if you're San Francisco, especially now that you don't have Deebo Samuel as well.
I agree totally with that.
It feels like the Niners operation is about to kind of flip over, and maybe that's for the better. But like it just seems like so much of what was there is going to have to change over for them to stay good. Do you feel that way too?
I do, and that's part of football, right? I mean, there are windows, and sometimes you catch lightning in the bottle, but you had Bosa and Kittle and those guys, and they're starting to come past their prime a little bit. And it doesn't take much. I mean, when your roster ages together, like when they peak together, they're also going to start aging together. And sometimes the aging in the NFL, because it's such a physical sport, it gets accelerated. And it's just you play once a week. You play 17 games. It only takes one or two bad games to put you out of contention. And then you have to start looking around and figuring out, how are we going to manage the salary cap going forward. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that we're probably going to see a little bit of a turnover in the division. The Rams obviously look good. Seattle's looking good. Arizona will probably bounce back. So yeah, I think it's time for 49ers to reassess and look for ways to make another run.
But Greenberg, you looked at the Caps. They went on a little slump. They ended up getting a much-needed win the other night. When do you think Alex gets back on track, and will he break it this year or not?
I do think he'll break it this year. Let's see what I have. I have roughly about a 90% chance he's going to break the record. I think the most likely games are 2 on the road. One late March against the Wild, and then April Fool's Day against Boston. If you're looking to secure some home tickets, the 2 games I have as the best chance are April 4th against the Blackhawks or March 30th against the Sabres.
Yo, those are my games, aren't they?
No, April 1st and 4th are my dates.
I have March 30th.
In like a pool?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did a draft in the show.
Oh, now your text makes sense.
What were your 2 dates? April 4th and March 30th, Greenberg?
Yeah, for home games, yeah.
Were you concerned about the 3-game losing streak and then almost blowing that thing against Ottawa the other night?
Nah, that's hockey. I mean, it's going to be ups and downs. You're going to have teams that go on streaks. I mean, this team has shown that it is very, very good in what should have been probably a rebuilding or at least a retooling year. I think that this team is tough. I mean, it's got some depth. I'm interested to see what they do at the trade deadline. Maybe grab some depth forwards or make a little bit of retooling on the forward depth. But Spencer Carberry, I mean, it's hard to argue he isn't the coach of the year. Maybe 1 or 2 others have a chance at it. But when you look at expectations and what's been happening, and then, oh, by the way, Ovechkin breaks his leg, and you're still like you didn't miss a beat. I think that he should have that locked up.
I think it's kind of a news for casual Caps fans, and there are a lot of them. And I know the hardcore fans kind of resent that, but there's a lot of people that are going to really jump on board the Caps bandwagon as Ovi. I mean, hell, he's already close as Ovi zeroes in on this record. And then for the playoff run, I think the dude that I've enjoyed kind of watching and learning is Chychrun, but there's a lot of new names, faces, whatever. Who do you think are some of the most important parts of this Caps machine that maybe aren't getting the same discussion that Tom Wilson and John Carlson do?
Well, I think Dubois has certainly been a big pickup. Connor McMichael might be the best Connor Mick in the NHL, which probably wouldn't have thought of saying a couple of years ago. They have a lot of young guys that are contributing. Logan Thompson, obviously, in net. They locked up their goaltenders for the next couple of years, so people should definitely start to get familiar with them. But I think that I think Connor McMichael to me has probably been one of the more exciting performances from the young guys. 24 years old, has 22 goals this year. Had 18 goals last year. Is really starting to mature in the NHL. I really liked his game, and I think that it's really nice that he's able to be a big part of this team. because he's really kind of just blossomed into that role.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and dude, don't they have the BC kid in the pipeline too?
Yeah, they have him coming. He'll probably you mean Ryan Leonard?
Sure.
Yeah,
he's the one that goes to BC, right?
Yeah, he'll probably sign after college. He's another one that will come in. I think when you look at this team, like, again, the sunsetting on the Alex Ovechkin era, but you will probably see Tom Wilson as the next captain, and then kind of Michael, 24 years old, really good. Jacob, 26 years old. Strome is relatively young in hockey terms, and then you have this kid coming up from Boston, like you said. I mean, there could be some interesting stuff from Washington even after the Ovechkin era is over. I think that this is a team that hopefully Ovechkin can get them hooked into, and then we can start to see these other guys start to come to the forefront and be the face of the franchise for the next generation.
Yo, last thing, Greenberg. Nats get their TV rights in a year. They're finally selling. They're going to try to sell stadium naming rights, maybe a patch on the uniform. What do you make of this? Why all of a sudden try to make some money?
Well, they have some catching up to do, and money's king in baseball. I mean, you need it to spend it. I mean, you look at it's very rare for a small market or a small budget team to be successful.
This ain't a small market, is all I would point out.
No, but it's been acting like one because of the financial surrounding it. You have a very big spender in the division in Queens. The New York Mets.
And in Philly.
I'm sorry?
And in Philly.
And in Philly, yep. And you have Atlanta, which is really good. And then you obviously have on the other side in New York, in the American League and the Dodgers and everything. So, like, you need to be able to spend money. You need to be able to not only get talent, but keep the talent that you had. We certainly see that revolving door here in Washington. Make as much money as you can, but just, I think it's fine to make the money, just spend it on the product, right? Like that to me is where I think fans would have a right to get angry. Start spending the money, keep the players that you grow. You've shown you're able to do that and start to be competitive again.
This fan is prepared to be angry about that.
Yeah, I'm just surprised that they just waiting to sell the naming rights.
Yeah, like I get the TV
that had
stuff
nothing to do with the TV.
Right. The TV stuff was held up in courts. Like I understand the complicated nature of that, but the naming rights, stadium rights, the amount of cutting off of noses to spite faces is just crazy. Greenberg, we got a boogeyman. Thank you for the time.
All right, love you guys. Talk to you soon.
Appreciate you, bro.
That's our guy, Neil Greenberg. You can follow at @ngreenberg on Twitter, Instagram. He's saying March 4th or April 30th if you want a home game for Ovi. Let's hope he gets it done.